Let's talk about adjectives to describe transport. Why the long face? I'm working on a project about Hong Kong transport. I have no idea how to collect people's opinions. Why don't you do a survey at school? I guess I can. Molly is going to interview some of her friends and teachers at school. Pay attention to the words in yellow. They are adjectives to describe transport. How do you usually get around? I mostly use the MTR. It's convenient. I can always get where I need. It is also reliable. The trains here are always on time. It is convenient. I can always get where I need. What does the word convenient mean? If something is convenient, that means it is useful to you because it saves your time and does not cause you any problems. For example, a bike is a very convenient way of getting around. It's very convenient that you live near the office. It is also reliable. The trains here are always on time. Reliable means someone or something that can be trusted. If someone is reliable, that means you can tell this person your secret. Let's look at some examples. Don't worry, buses in Hong Kong are reliable. You will get to the airport on time. Gary is very reliable. If he says he'll do something, he'll do it. How do you usually get around? I lived in Tim Sa Tsui. It is very convenient for me to get around Hong Kong. I take the ferry to school. I know it is slow to go by ferry. It takes me about half an hour to get to school from home. But I hate traveling by MTR during peak hours. People are pushy because the train is too crowded. I know it is slow to go by ferry. If the transport is slow, that means taking this transport takes you a lot of time. For example, the bus is traveling at a very slow speed. I think I'm going to be late. My computer is really slow. I need to buy a new one. People are pushy because the train is too crowded. If a place is crowded, it is full of people. For example, as Christmas gets closer, the shops get more and more crowded. The train was very crowded and we had to stand. How do you usually get around? I take the bus to school every day. It is cheaper than taking the MTR. It costs me about $14 for a single journey. But if I use the bus, I spend only $9. Buses in Hong Kong are frequent. There are buses every 5 minutes or so. Also, it is comfortable to travel by bus because all the buses are air-conditioned. It is cheaper than taking the MTR. If something is cheap, that means it costs you very little money. For example, children and the elderly can get cheap train tickets. That restaurant serves cheap and delicious food. Buses in Hong Kong are frequent. In this sentence, that means buses come very often. For example, she makes frequent trips home to London. That means she always travels to London. He is a frequent business traveler. He has spent many nights in hotel rooms. Also, it is comfortable to travel by bus because all the buses are air-conditioned. Comfortable means it makes you feel relaxed. Remember, the pronunciation of this word is comfortable, not comfortable. There are only 3 syllables in this word. Let's look at some examples. This bed is not comfortable. It is too hard. I don't feel comfortable in high heels. How do you usually get around, Miss Lau? I prefer to travel by taxi. I know it is expensive, but it saves me a lot of time. It takes me about an hour to get to work if I go by bus. I can get to school in 50 minutes by taxi. It is very difficult to find a seat on a bus or MTR during peak hours, and I hate standing for a long time. I know it is expensive, but it saves me a lot of time. If something is expensive, it costs you a lot of money. It is the opposite of cheap. For example, I think $500 for a watch is pretty expensive. It is expensive to fly first class. Now, let's look at how to take words you already know and make them into new words. All you have to do is add a few letters before the word. These are called prefixes. Let's look at some prefixes. You know the word comfortable. Did you know that if you don't feel comfortable about something, you could say uncomfortable? What does the prefix un mean? That's right. Un means not. So, uncomfortable means not comfortable. We can use this prefix with other words, such as unreliable, unreliable, unwell, unwell, unkind, unkind, unlucky, unlucky, unhelpful, unhelpful, untie, untie, unwrap, unwrap. Here's another prefix. What does inexpensive mean? The prefix in means not. So, inexpensive means not expensive. We can also use the prefix in with convenient. Inconvenient, inconvenient. Incorrect, incorrect. Incomplete, incomplete. Do you remember the word impolite? You learned this word in the first term. The prefix im also means not. We can use im with the following words: impatient, impatient, impossible, impossible, imperfect, imperfect. The prefix dis also means not. If you don't like something, you can say I dislike something, not unlike. If you don't agree with someone, you can say I disagree with you. Disagree. Dishonest, dishonest. Disappointed, disappointed. Disappear, disappear. Discover, discover. There are a few more prefixes that go with a range of words. Be careful. You can't do this with all vocabulary, but you can have fun experimenting to see which ones work and which ones don't. Next time when you are reading or listening to English, start noticing which beginnings are being used. Make a note of them, and more importantly, use them. It's the only way to remember them. Let's revise the adjectives that we have learned in this lesson. I'm going to put them into two categories: positive adjectives and negative adjectives. Comfortable, comfortable. The opposite is uncomfortable, uncomfortable. fast, fast. The opposite is slow, slow. Cheap or inexpensive, cheap, inexpensive. The opposite is expensive, expensive. Empty, empty. The opposite is crowded, crowded. Convenient, convenient. The opposite is inconvenient, inconvenient. Reliable, reliable. The opposite is unreliable, unreliable. Let's see if you can use the adjectives correctly. Number 1. There's a lot of people in the station during peak hours. Is. The answer is crowded. Number 2. There's not a lot of people here. It's rather. The answer is empty. Number 3. Why are these buses late so often? They are so. The answer is unreliable. Number 4. These seats are very hard. They are. The answer is uncomfortable. Number 5. The bullet trains in Japan run at high speed. They are very. The answer is fast. I hope you can use these adjectives in your writing.